1798 actually sparked the beginning of the movement. طبعا lyrical ballads, when we talk about lyrical ballads, as you know, it's a collection of poetry. It's a collection of poetry by William Wordsworth and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. The end of the movement, طبعا, some critics say that it ended in 1837. Okay, so roughly speaking, the Romantic movement started in 1798 with the publication of lyrical ballads by Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth, and ended with the beginning of طبعا in 1837. That was the beginning of the Victorian age. As you know, that 1837 was the beginning of the Victorian age. Now, as you know, the Romantic poets focus on nature, right? They are interested in nature. They are interested in describing the beauty of nature. So this is one of the main characteristics of Romantic poetry. Romantic poetry is interested in nature. Romantic poets emphasize the individual's emotions and imagination. So we're talking about interest in nature, describing the beauty of nature, emphasis on the individual's emotions and imagination. The third point actually here, departure from the attitudes and forms of classicism. Departure from the attitudes and forms of classicism. Because as you know, that the classic writers, we're talking about Greco-Roman writers, by the way here, Greco-Roman writers focus on what? Focus on the mind, not on the emotions, right? You see the point? Yes, they focus on the mind, not on emotions. And as you know, that Romantic poets طبعا define poetry as a spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions. But they focus on what? They focus on emotions, right? So the Romantic poets طبعا depart from the attitudes and forms of classicism. And number 4 actually is that rebellion. Romantic poets actually reject, they rebel against the established social rules and conventions. As we can see طبعا in London 1802 by William Wordsworth. Right or wrong? William Wordsworth in London 1802 rejects the established social rules. He criticizes actually the social ills of society. Any questions so far? If you have any questions. So the first point, as we said, interest in nature or describing the beauty of nature. Emphasis on the individual's emotions and imagination. Departure from the attitudes and forms of classicism. And rejection or rebellion, let's say, against established social rules and conventions. Yes, these are the characteristics of the romantic movement. These are the characteristics of the of romantic poetry, if you want to say. Okay, any questions, students, so far? If you have any questions, everything is clear. طبعا, if you do not know, William Wordsworth, he grew up in the country. He grew up in the country, close to nature. So he believes, as many as all طبعا as all romantic poets believe, that we can commune with nature, we can interact with nature, and there's a kind of a pure, let's say, communion with nature between people and طبعا between people and nature. There is pure communion between both sides. Now, as adults, طبعا they believe the romantics believe that human beings, the romantics believe that human beings move from the stage of innocence, human beings move from the stage of innocence, that is childhood, to the stage of imperfection, that is adulthood. The romantics believe that human beings move from the stage of innocence, that is childhood, to the stage of imperfection, that is what? Adulthood. And they also believe that children are able to commune with nature without any restrictions, without any barriers. They believe that children are able to commune with nature, to interact with nature without any restrictions, without any barriers. But when they grow up, they lose their connection with nature. When they grow up, they lose their connection with nature. And طبعا they believe that the memory of childhood can offer access. The memory of childhood can offer access to the lost purities of the past. Through طبعا, through the use of what? Imagination. Again, they believe, the romantics believe, that the memory of childhood can offer access to the lost purities of the past. As we have just mentioned earlier, that when the children grow up, they lose their connection with nature. But still, through the memory of childhood, طبعا, they still can commune with nature through the use of what? Or through using what? Their imaginative power. Okay. One more important point actually is that William Wordsworth is highly critical of the immorality, of the social illness, of the immorality, of the imperfection of modern society. William Wordsworth is highly critical of the imperfection, of the illness, of the immorality of modern society. Okay. Another important point, as you know, that the romantics actually emphasize the use of simple language. the Romantics emphasize the use of simple language in their poetry. It's the language of common people. It's the language of common people, commoners, ordinary people. Again, the Romantics طبعا are different from the Romantics are different from 18th century poets. They are different from the poets, okay, in the 18th century, the age of enlightenment, the age of reason. You know that poets during the age of enlightenment wanted to revive the ideas of the Greco-Romans. They wanted to revive the ideas of classicists. So they emphasized on the mind. They used ornamented language. But for the Romantics, they said that actually poetry poetry deals with the problems of ordinary people. So it needs to use the language of ordinary people, the language of commoners, the language of simple people, the language of the middle class. So that is why they emphasize, okay, the use of simple language. Yes. Any questions so far, students? If you have any questions, anything that is not clear. طبعا, as you know, when we talk about Romantic poets, we talk about Samuel Taylor Coleridge and William Wordsworth. These are the leading figures of the Romantic movement. We talk about Percy Bysshe Shelley, right? John Keats, George Gordon or Lord Byron, and William Blake. These are the 6 major figures of the Romantic movement. These are the 6 major poets of the Romantic movement. Yes, any questions? If you have any questions, everything is clear. بقدي المقتلي ولا بدك كمان؟
واضح يا دكتور.
بكفي ولا شلون؟
والله ما ادري اللي تشوفه يا دكتور.
لا تشوفه اللي تشوفه انت يا المقتلي.
ما ادري، انا اشوف المقدمه واضحه بس ما ادري عن باقي
يعني بكفي ننتقل عن لندن 1802 ولا شو رايك؟
ما ادري، انا رايي اشوف انه عادي، بس اتكلم عن نفسي مو عن باقي الطلاب.
يعني خلاص بكفي عن لندن 1802.
ما تشوف باقي الطلاب يا دكتور.
طيب نسال
ما
العيسى.
اقدر اقرر عنهم.
طب مين؟ ما فيش سبوكس مان عندنا هنا؟ ما فيش سبوكس بيرسون عندنا متحدث باسم الشعب غير
المكتب؟ ما
المكتب؟
حللنا القصيده صحيح؟
نعم،
ما حللنا القصيده.
انت لسه تذكرت يا المكتلي؟ طيب حللناها لسه، جعفر والمحسن ما تكلموا عنها. يا المكتلي
هلا صحيح.
يعني انت بدك نحلل القصيده يا المكتلي؟
اذا ما عندك مشكله يا دكتور.
ما عندي، انا شوف في عندي مشكله، ما فيش عندي مشكله. يلا اقرا. هاي انا قاعد بشرب بزنجبيل ومندردش احنا وياك.
ابدا اقرا.
يس يا المكتلي.
اوكي.
ترى يا المكتلي لازم تشرب يوميا زنجبيل ومع عسل وليمون يوميا.
الجرين تي يكفي يا دكتور بالنسبه لي.
نعم،
الجرين تي يكفي.
صحيح الجرين تي از جود، بس برضه الزنجبيل يعني صراحه لذيذ جدا، يعني مع العسل والليمون منعش صحي.
ان شاء الله نجرب في الايام الجايه.
زنجبيل طبعا مع زنجبيل اخضر مش مطحون.
طازج.
بس شو دخل هذا الموضوع في لندن 1802 يا اوكي اوكي يا مكتري. يس يا مكتري فاس.
اوكي. Milton, thou shouldst be living at this hour. England hath need of thee. She's a fin of stagnant waters, altar, sword and pen. Fireside, the heroic wealth of Hall and Bower have forfeited their ancient England dower of inward happiness. We are selfish men. Oh, raise us up, return to us again, and give us manner, virtue, freedom, power. Their soul was like a star, and doubt apart. Thou hadst a voice whose sound was like the sea, pure as the naked heavens, majestic, free. So didst thou travel on life's common way, in cheerful godliness, and yet thy heart, the lowest dotes on herself did lie.
Okay, yes, thank you so much يا المكتلي. الزهراني, could you please for us يا الزهراني?
إن شاء الله.
Yes.
Milton, thou shouldst be living at this hour.
Okay,
England
who's Milton? Who's Milton? Any idea?
Maybe John Milton, Doctor.
Yes,
poet.
John Milton. Who's John Milton?
Poet.
A poet. Okay. What about John Milton? What does he represent? I'm pretty sure you know that John Milton is a 17th century English poet, right?
Yes.
Okay, he's a 17th century English poet طبعا. يعني you know he's one of the best طبعا poets at the time. One of the best actually poets at the time. He's one of the most popular poets at the time. If not the greatest طبعا in the 17th century, if not the greatest. Now, when we say John Milton, thou shouldst be living at this hour. So it seems that Milton represents the former glory of London, of England, right? He represents the values that the English society lost. Again, Milton seems to represent the former glory of London, of England. And the values that the English society lost or failed to maintain. After what? طبعا after the Industrial Revolution. After the Industrial Revolution. You know the meaning of Industrial Revolution, right? When we talk about Industrial Revolution, الثورة الصناعية بنسميها. The Industrial Revolution in Europe and طبعا the United States. When we talk about the Industrial Revolution, we talk about the transition to a new industrial society. الانتقال إلى مجتمع صناعي جديد. طبعا this revolution started in about طبعا 1760. It started in 1760. يعني نتكلم عن the let's say the mid 18th century. Let's say the mid 18th century. It started in the mid 18th century. So Milton, thou shouldst be living at this hour. And it's very clear here that this is a cry of what? Now let me ask you this question. How does the speaker feel?
Feel sad.
Yes, sad. Why does he feel sad?
He wished if Milton was alive.
Why does he wish that Milton is? Why does he wish that Milton was alive?
Because England needs him.
England actually does not need Milton. England needs people like Milton, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, England needs people like Milton. England needs good people like Milton, religious people, honorable people, people who can maintain the values of the English society, the good values, the morals. You see the point?